Welcome everybody to a game breakdown, but it's a little bit different. You get to see all of our sexy faces. I am Nick.
I'm
I'm
Mike.
Matt.
Yeah, so there you go. Those are the other people. And today we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima, a game that I think it's safe to say all of us, it's pretty good. You know, like not bad at all, but it's like it's up there. You know, like a 2 thumbs up.
Dude,
game.
we all platinum that game.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to underplay it before we talk about the awesome things about it. But either way, if you are new to a game breakdown by the lovely GoldenDudez, we usually like to talk about very specific things in the game that either we were really happy about, things that really blew our mind, certain things that we think that we can kind of critique it on, but we kind of do a deep dive into these games to be able to. It's kind of more structured like a review, but it's mainly focused on like the game itself and what we liked about it. So to start things off, I gave them already a list of topics that we're going to discuss, but the first thing that I want to talk about is, did you like the game? I mean, it's kind of fair that we all platinumed the game, but if you liked the game, just say one thing that you liked about it, you know?
I just platinumed it for fun.
I did it because I had to.
It was
'Cause you had
homework.
to. You're the first
It was
one
a
that
homework
did it.
assignment. No,
I
but
liked the scenery. It was like the most beautiful game I think I played in like years. I thought it was so gorgeous.
What about you?
I really enjoyed the fighting mechanics and
Mhm.
the smooth gameplay that came along with it. I am now spoiled, and whenever I play any like combat open world game now, it just doesn't feel the same.
that is true.
The-
Me and Matt
It-
talked
it-
very
it's like it's very difficult. Like definitely, like it's a style that does not come easy, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually kind of fun.
I agree. And actually, that's actually a good point to kind of like springboard into one of our first topics and that's just in general of the gameplay itself, talking about how technically, if you want to look at this game by the books, it is an open world game, has a main storyline that you can follow, but it also does really great things, especially with the side characters and the quest structure that they have. They don't call quests in the same way that a lot of, like, not even the basic word, like side quests.
They're tales.
They're tales. Everything in this game is kind of structured in the way where you're placed in a setting. You see a lot of different areas where you can like branch off and do certain different tasks if you like one side character or whatnot. And the main ones, like for example, the Tale of Ishikawa, Lady Masako, and all of those I felt like just flowed really, really well into the rest of the game, where it didn't feel like you were ever breaking what you were, like, your main goal to do these side quests. Every one of the side quests I felt was very integral and tied into the actual main story itself, and I think that's what a lot of open worlds can kind of fail to do at times, where they'll just give you random errands to do. Like, for example, I always use Xenoblade when it comes to this, but Xenoblade's pretty bad at this. Well, they'll always throw in those side quests where it's collect 15 of this or get something of this, but I never felt like Ghost of Tsushima really fell into that same trap. I felt like if you were doing a side quest, it was important to what your main goal at the end was, or whatever act it was, and I think that was one.
Besides platinuming it, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But most of the side quests, like,
But I will agree that the tales were not like annoying. They actually went into, like Nick mentioned, like story, and they didn't become like, oh, like it's just. I mean, some of them, okay, not annoying, but they become they became repetitive, like.
yeah.
Quietly save this village, stealthily invade and save this person. It's kind of the same, but
At least the goals were never the same there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, for example, if you're liberating a village, sometimes you're just doing it because of the fact that the Mongols are there. But other times when you're liberating a village, it's not because of that. It's because you're trying to get to, like, that one person that might be fugitive. You're trying to find a specific item. At least it keeps giving you that variety of what your end goal is if you are doing the same task. So yes, technically it is. You are going to be doing a lot of killing of Mongols, but to me it felt like enough of a difference where it never felt like I was doing the same thing over and over, even though technically, yes, you were doing a lot of the same things repeatedly. How about you, Mike?
Yeah.
Well, it's because, like you said, I think the
Speaking
biggest
of-
thing is the end goal was different every time. Like, because at the end of the day, the side missions and the tales, all the structure of them was always the same. It was go here. There's going to be Mongols there, and then it was either like kill the Mongols, defend the Mongols, maybe like save someone or rescue someone. It always kind of worked out where it was the same, but I think the reason it felt different is like every time your goal was different. One of them was you're trailing like a traitor, right? Someone that secretly joined the Mongols, or at least what you thought at the time. Or another time it was, just a complete like revenge story and someone who murdered someone's family. So it was always like different incentives, and I think that's kind of what made them feel interesting, at least to me.
And one of the things that I also really liked about this, maybe it's because of the fact that we get so conditioned of always wanting to see like a happy ending. I kind of like the fact that some of these side stories didn't really give you the resolution that you were expecting, but it still gave a resolution to the story itself. So for example, this is going to be spoiler territory, but when it comes down to like Lady Masako, the end of her story, especially with that reunion with her sister, it's not a happy ending. It's just an ending. And you still know what happens at the end of her entire journey, but I do like the fact that games aren't always going down that it has to be like a happy reunion, or there was just a misunderstanding or something like that. Like, no, the shitty person is still just a shitty person, and they did a shitty thing at the very end. And this is a huge spoiler, so fast forward 10 seconds if you don't want to hear this. Her sister kills herself. Her sister just stabs herself and says, "You gotta live with this pain." And it's a really shitty thing to do, especially to one of your last living siblings. But it's nice the fact that these side missions still they kind of feel like their own mini story, which they're supposed to, but in a way that is nice and packaged where it can kind of stand on its own in its own way. It's not as, what's the right word? Compelling as the main story, but it's nice to give you that little break, which is, I think the side quests in this game were done almost perfectly, in my personal opinion.
Speaking of side quests, which one of the side quests was your favorite? How about this? How about I narrowed it down to like the big side quests? So like Enjo, Lady Masako, Sensei Ishikawa, Yuriko. So like I guess those 4. Unless you guys have something you had a side quest that really touched you.
For me personally, it has to be in between. I know what you're going for. For me, it's got to either be in between Ishikawa or Norio, because both of them. Ishikawa is the one that I think is the only like quote-unquote good ending you can have. But for Norio, I really like the fact that he really loved the mission of the Ghost. He liked what the Ghost stood for, and he liked what the Ghost was achieving along the way. But as he kept going down that path that you saw, he kind of just kept losing himself along the way. And I think that was such a cool, like, I don't want to say
parallel. It's a parallel to Jin,
it's a nice parallel to show that like what Jin was doing throughout the entire time is not like the righteous path by any means, which is what Norio, a monk, kind of originally thought it was. And I like the fact that at the end he kind of learned that, wow, this is not like this path or what you're doing, while it's necessary to some degree, it's not what I wish on my worst day.
Pretty dark, yeah.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Yeah. I don't know. Ishikawa's I really liked, just because I like the whole story with Tomoe and everything. But I will say, to be different, it's not that it's a side quest, I guess, but it's a side series of things you can do. I loved the duels with the Ronin when that became available. Just kind of the idea that like your best friend and like you were betrayed, and kind of the Ronins turn tail, and you track them down to these different locations, and it's like these duels, and they always have something to say, like, we did it. It's nothing personal. It's business. It's my job to kill you. So it was just like these like cool little places where, these intense guys were ready to duel you, and they're not Mongols. So it made those fights a little more personal, a little more intense. So I would say that was probably like my favorite thing to do. Not that those were like really missions or required by any stretch, but it was fun tracking them down, and like I loved the duels in this game. That was like one of my favorite things to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
and what was awesome about it was the scenery, and every single one of them was awesome. Like one of them we were in like a wetlands area, one of them was right underneath a waterfall. Every one of the duels, the scenery just made it so much. It definitely elevated what like you would initially already think was a cool fight. The scenery just made it that much better. Or even I think my favorite duel was when you go in the secret mountain and there's all like those candles that are floating on the water. I think that was part of the side quest, but I thought that duel was amazing. Yeah,
those were cool.
Okay, so actually we'll stay on the combat system. Oh wait, that's a different game breakdown, and that's one of the things I want to talk about in this. And
that's all we have to say.
Yeah, the next one. But I want to talk about the use of fear and terror as it goes along. If you're new to the game, you see like as it starts off, Jin is very about his honor. He's very about the righteous way of approaching a fight, and as the game progresses, that definition and that kind of logical rules that he's living by kind of gets shifted into this new identity as it goes along. And one of the things that I really liked as the game progressed is how you start off, at least for me, I liked using the samurai armor because it gave you like a better health. It weakened the damage that you would get if you were struck. But as it goes along, the armor you use definitely changes as you get better sets of armor. So as you start evolving into the role of the ghost, you're stepping away from that samurai identity that Jin used to have, and you start using different tactics, and the ghost tactics that you're using is ones of fear and terror. And what I really like about that is how well that they use those, how they use that in-game elements. For example, like when you have the ghost armor, where you're able to, like, if you kill a certain amount of people in succession, you get to activate the ghost mode and you just get to scare the shit out of them. And for one, these modes are super fun to use, but two, I just like the fact that they're actually able to use it as like a central theme in the game and use it in so many unique ways, like while you're leveling up, while you're fighting enemies, and also as the gear that you're wearing as the game progresses. So I'm curious, what kind of were your guys' favorite ways that the game used fear and terror?
I really like the so like Nick mentioned, like if you kill enough enemies in succession, you can activate Ghost Terror. There's also another upgrade where, well, the game goes like you have to unlock skills for Jin's character. Eventually, there's a skill that you can unlock where you can kill enemies upon challenging them. So sometimes when you roll up to a group of Mongols or an encampment, you can be like, you have two options. You can either like sneakily kill them, which is preferred way supposedly for Ghost of Tsushima, because it makes the game a little bit easier because you can take them out silently. But what fun is that? Let's put a little honor in that and samurai and challenge them to a duel. And anyways, if you've been the first encounter with that samurai, that Mongol that you challenge, you can kill up to, I believe, 4 Mongols with the fully upgraded one. Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Depending on if you use the Jin Sakai armor, I believe. Yeah. So once you kill the 4th one, the other Mongols will panic and be like, "Oh snap, that's effed up. I'm out of here." And then also, spoiler alert for progressing in the story, later Jin uses different tactics, such as, fire and poison, where he can, manipulate and destroy enemies that way by blowing them up, poisoning them slowly, watching them die, cutting their throats. Just a lot of ways, like you mentioned, for the ghost to do his damage and reap terror on the Mongol army.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think building off of what Matt said there with the poison, because I think, like you were saying, Nick, kind of the whole plot of this game is, a tug of war between honor and then doing anything it takes to defend your country. And I feel like the poison especially was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, because at the beginning, I think everyone's on Jin's side. It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to stab someone in the back if they're a bad person. To me, that was always, well, no, duh, I'm going to take Jin's side. But it was the poison where you start to realize there is a line that you can cross that maybe is going too far, especially when you see like the Mongols then learned about the poison and they started using it against the, the people that lived on Tsushima Island. And so seeing like, maybe Jin is not a bad person for going against honor, but maybe there is some credence to the idea that he is taking things a bit too far and that it could end up being, so there is like this tug of war. And I think when you reach that point of the game, it really starts to say, okay, you can use terror, you can use these tactics. He's defending his country, and doing whatever it takes to do that is okay. But yeah, right. But understanding that, when that cost now is affecting your own people, where does that line happen? And so I think like just fear and terror and that point of, are those tactics okay if it's potentially going to hurt the people you're trying to save? And it becomes a matter of not just putting honor aside, but, potentially sacrificing safety for people. So I think that point was really interesting, because then it really becomes that back and forth on, where's the balance between the two?
And I love what you mentioned there, especially about with the poison too, because once it did actually reach the poison for me, I was like, I didn't actually want to use the poison because I thought Jin was going too far. So they give you all these tools, but I think one of the best commentaries that I can give about this game is not all of them are necessary to beat the game. If you want to, it might be a pain in the ass, but you can melee fight every single one of them if you want to still be honorable to the samurai way. If you want to, you can kill all of them silently and assassinate them in the dark. But you don't have to, like, I didn't have to use flaming arrows if I didn't want to. I didn't have to use the poison. You can still beat the game, and I love the fact that it allows you to, it gives you all of the resources you need to to still beat the game. Like, it makes it easier because, again, you're doing everything you can to save your country, but you don't need to use those weapons to get to the to defeat the Khan.
Get to it. You don't even need to unlock most of the skills too.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But like Nick mentioned, it helps. It's fun, and there are a lot of
poisoning people.
I like hallucinogen actually. I love that. Making a berserker crazy. Oh, those are fun, especially the ones with the guns.
Oh,
yeah. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So then they would just shoot at each other. They had like a duel.
Yeah. One time turn the big guys against the little guys. That was
no.
Awesome.
I turned the big guys against each other at the same time. So they were like dueling each other with the big.
And you know what? On the topic of the berserker thing, I always felt like when you berserk someone, they were like stronger than all the other enemies. Like I feel like not only did they become like your ally in a way, but they were also like 10 times stronger than they were before because they would mow down like 5-6 Mongols. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember trying the hallucinogen, but I definitely stayed away from the poison though. So I don't know. I feel like the only necessary like parts of the gameplay, at least for me, where I thought it would, or at least definitely made the combat easier, was unlocking like the final forms of all the stances. So like once you unlocked all like the wind stance, the moon stance, and you got all the way down on the skill tree, I think that was very useful. But besides that, yeah, like I barely used any of the other ghost weapons. I mainly just used kunai and maybe some smoke bombs at some places. But for the most part, I didn't really use a lot of the quote-unquote ghost weapons. I think I might have used the... What was it?
Definitely, like as you mentioned, like if you use those items though, your chances of dying do decrease because I do remember like my health being very low, but I'm like, oh, I have like 4 kunai. I'll just like kunai all these guys, and then they'll all die from their own blood, choking on their own blood.
Jesus Christ.
Damn, that is tough. But actually,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
It made it a lot easier. And like smoke bombs, like I did. If things got iffy, I did run, but I would always run back and kill them and finish them off.
There you go.
When my health was regained.
Yeah, and since we're also on the topic and we just talked about bruisers, let's talk about some dynamic AI, because of the fact Mike was the one who was telling us about it before, and it did really intrigue me and Matt enough to, at least me, to play the game. I'm not sure if that's what actually intrigued Matt to play the game, but about the AI and how the enemy evolves as you play through the game, I think is really neat. So, for example, like same thing with as we mentioned before with the poison. If you come across enemies before, depending on what section of the game you are, they're limited in terms of weapons that they use against you. But as you get better weapons, the enemy also gets better weapons, and in the same way, because once they figure out about your poison, they start using it against you. And I don't know, just the way that they're actually able to keep these enemies that you're seeing over and over and over again feel different every single time you fight them, I thought was super, super cool. And one of the best things I think the dynamic AI did was the weapon variety that they had. So.
Oh yeah, well, and I think too, like, and I could be totally making this up. I have no idea if this was their intention at all, but I'm going to assume that it is because it sounds right to me. But like early on, you know, everyone struggles when they first play this game. I died a ton. I remember in Nick's stream, you know, you go to the first place and you die like 5-6 times, and it's just basic combat. But eventually you learn to parry, you learn how to do it, and it becomes fairly easy. So I think what the game did is it did a great job of, okay, now you've learned to parry. Here's an enemy with poison that you can't just parry your way out of it every time, you know? Because even if you try to parry, you still might get poison, or they have like a heavy attack, so now you have to learn to dodge a little bit. And so like it keeps throwing new things at you, so as you get better at the combat, it doesn't just become as simple as like parrying. Because, you know, not to talk too much about another game, but Assassin's Creed has always been really bad about that, where if you know how to parry in Assassin's Creed, you could beat literally everything in the game. You know, it's just or same with like Batman Arkham Asylum in that series. I love that game, but the combat is literally counter and hit. But in Tsushima, you can do that at the beginning, but then there are enemies where that doesn't work as well. So you kind of have to learn how to play it in every way. Some enemies, you know, archery tends to be the best way to take them down, or, you know, just some enemies, you know, going AWOL and just going a completely offensive works the best. And so it just depends on the enemy you're fighting. So it's a matter of figuring the enemy out, seeing their patterns and stuff, and like adapting to it, as opposed to just one strategy works all. So that's what made it so fun. It felt every fight was different, you know, and it was really cool that way.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Matt?
Yeah. And then going into like you mentioned, the different stances. So in the game, as you observe or kill Mongol like captains, you will be able to unlock all these different stances that you will need to use on a variety of enemies. So at the beginning, they'll only have like 1 or 2 different types of enemy, like a sword man with a shield or sword man. So you really don't have that many like different stances to play with. But later, once you unlock more stances, you will encounter more variety of enemies. You'll see all these guys who can have fire or poison, and like Mike mentioned, and you'll have to adapt. And you can go by and use one stance. You don't have to change your stance the whole entire game, but you will not have a fun time once you're kind of mobbed around all those different enemies, because they will just block your attack and make your escape a living hell. Oh, and then FYI, do not attempt to challenge the Yarikawa siege if you're not playing the Yarikawa mission. I have inadvertently walked into that camp, and my god,
it's the best.
You get wiped.
like even the game warns you, like, you are entering a part of the game where enemies are high level and you will die miserably.
And then you pretty much just get wiped by like one error, like, well, I shouldn't be here yet, and I just turned around. And just went back the other direction. Okay, so moving on to a different one, and something that I kind of want to lightly touch on is what you guys think about the way they used wind in this game. So wind in this game, in kind of its base sense, is used as a guide where you can point like a specific target onto the map. And this is also going to be talking about the overworld, like how Mike said he really liked the scenery, where if you put a mark on there, it doesn't give you a waypoint technically. What you do is you slide the touchpad on your controller, and there's wind that kind of flows in the direction on where you need to go. And then for some places, they don't want to tell you the exact location, so once you get within, say, like, I don't know, 30 meters or so, it'll say that you can't use the wind anymore and you just gotta explore the area. So what did you think about the wind as a guiding tool throughout the game, and what did you think about the way that it encouraged certain exploration? So, sorry, let me take one step back and let me finish this question. So, when you're hunting for certain areas, sometimes they don't actually give you a physical location. Like if you're looking for a not a pond, shrine, not shrine. What is it? Water. It's water.
Hot spring?
That's the one. Thank you. When you're looking for a hot spring, it'll just say that you can use the wind to guide you to a hot spring, but it doesn't tell you how far away it is or where the exact location's at. So
but it gives you direction,
Yeah, it gives you direction. So what do you think about the unique way that this game used as a guiding system? And what do you think about the little talk about the scenery as well?
Yeah, so I think, and kind of to extend just beyond the wind, I think like nature as a whole, I think was such a big thing. Because like you said, using the wind to take you places. I love the fact that it wasn't just, I can't think of the name, like the little compass that you see on games where it tells you north, right? South, east, west. Yeah. I'm glad that it was just, you flick up and then the wind kind of blows in that direction. And it was cool because it wasn't just the wind, like then it would shake the trees and it would shake the flowers, and you can kind of see the way that they're being pushed. But even beyond that, like everywhere you're going, if it's not the wind, it's something nature related. To find new costumes or abilities, sometimes you would follow foxes to their shrines. Birds were very prevalent in areas where, there were things like hot springs. So anytime you got near a hot spring, you would probably see birds flying around, or they would start flying toward it, or any number of like side quests and activities. And so they always use nature and stuff. So it wasn't like some guy that was standing there like pointing, go that way, or it's not like we're like Zelda or something where you have like Navi as a fairy that's like saying, hey, you can do this. It was very subtle things. It's to the point where you could probably play through the whole game. Obviously the wind you would know because the game tells you, but like the other things like the birds and the kind of the environment changing, you might not even notice. It's just like subtle little things that you may or may not pick up on, and I love that little detail because it's so passive and relaxing, which I think fits the theme of the game. You're on an island, you're a very peaceful nation. Granted, there's a huge Mongolian war going on now that they've invaded, but for the most part, it's people that are very attuned with nature. And so I love the fact that they use nature as kind of the guiding force in this game, as opposed to just like, a fit pop-up on your screen that says you are 20 meters away.
Yeah,
it was really cool.
Yeah.
It's not like a you go here. It's like a gentle hand. It's like a gentle gesture, like you can go here instead of
exactly
this place.
Right.
I thought the wind was good too. Like it helped to encourage exploration too, because sometimes I would easily get sidetracked. Sometimes I would be doing a main quest and then be like, oh, like there's something interesting going on here too. And even starting like with the main part of the game, like once you open up, like the wind opens up with just a beautiful like scenery of Tsushima, and along with the wind being able to track down all the side quests. I really like the way that you could do the haikus. Oh, in this game you can make your own haiku, so practice a little poetry.
I mean, it's kind of like a preset template, but yeah.
But yeah, I actually had a very difficult time making words that, I mean, the haikus that made sense. Some of them would just be like talking about darkness, and then eventually be like, about death and all that. But eventually, yeah, I mean, the wind, I liked it. It helped to make the game more immersive, and a lot of games, nowadays really have difficulty like trying to have players become one with the game. And I felt that the wind added additional, like, I know we talked about this like a while ago, like realism. The wind kind of helped with that, because you weren't just given like like a digi map of like, oh, you got to go here, or like a waypoint. Like it also made like the screen like clean. Like
it did.
You really it was not very cluttered. Like the only thing you would see would be your health bar, and then directions of if you're going on a mission or something to find. But other than that, that's pretty much it. There's no like no HUD or anything, or any indication.
Yeah.
So overall, like the wind helped to, make the game experience a lot more smooth.
Yeah, I want to expand on a point when you're saying about it, like how it made the layout very clean too. Because depending on the setting of the game, it doesn't make as much sense to go for some kind of waypoint system or something, and usually it's something that we kind of look past. But like, say for example, Horizon Zero Dawn, another fantastic open world game. To me, it kind of made sense to have that stuff, because you're kind of living in some it's kind of like a post-apocalyptic, but it has a very big futuristic element here. This game was in feudal Japan, so it didn't really make sense to have those kinds of tools. So having the wind, which is something that, let's face it, has existed since the beginning of time, makes sense to work as a guiding tool there. So I really like what you said there, Matt, about like that aspect. So moving on to a new part, this is going to be a pretty big shift. Going to be talking about the co-op mode that was added, Ghost of Tsushima Legends. And this is a game mode that may or may not be on the channel before this this gets released. I have no idea. We played it. We really enjoyed it. And I kind of want to get some of our thoughts before we move into our final topic, which is a big one. So, first of all, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, if people aren't aware, is a free mode that was added to this game, too. It wasn't planned, at least not on our radar at all. And they just kind of added it for people to try out. It has a lot of unique aspects where you can do like co-op story modes, you do like survival modes as well. There's certain mission modes that are added to it. It kind of is just a way, if you really like the combat of the game and you're already playing through it a second time, you can kind of enjoy it with a friend and whatnot. And so I've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of Ghost of Tsushima Legends so far, and I just want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, not only does Sucker Punch make a great like main story game, like they actually decided to give a free like multiplayer that actually works decently, and allows for a lot of customization that doesn't require you to buy loot boxes and stuff. All you have to do is actually play the online game and and be decent, and then level up, and then you'll unlock all these new custom like sword kits, samurai armor. Like it's awesome. Like I don't have to be like, oh wow, I wish I could have that samurai armor, but it costs $5 to buy it. I was like, they honestly could have done that and people would still do it, but Sucker Punch hasn't gotten to that point yet, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But who knows? This is their first big breakthrough, and maybe once they see the money, I hope they don't change, but
Well, they did make the Sly Cooper games, which is funny because that kind of stealth game is very different than this stealth game that they created.
Oh,
yeah.
Sly Cooper's a little too realistic, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Not really, but anyway. But no, like I do agree with what Matt's saying. Like the way that they like give out gear as you keep doing like this, like the survival missions and the story modes, I think is really, really well done. Because I never felt like it is a game where it rewards people who play more, which is nice. But it gives you the rewards at a nice pace too. So for example, as you're starting through, you only have like level 5 gear. Your techniques aren't powered up too much. You have specific classes. But what's nice about it is that even after your first couple story missions, they're giving you new gear. You can you also have the option to dismantle it if you have, say, you got like 3 swords and you don't need another sword, so you can dismantle the cheaper one. You can get some stuff for it. But as you keep playing it keeps giving you better and better gear, and it's not done in the same way that the original that the solo mode's done in. So it gives you, so like for example, when you're doing like the bronze level survival challenges, you're only doing 15 waves, and the enemies, to be honest, aren't really that tough. I remember we had some trouble on it because of the fact that we just didn't have high enough level gear. But then as like after me and all of us did a couple missions, we got to higher level gear where now if we go back to that challenge again, it really isn't too difficult. It's actually a lot easier than you'd expect, and it sections out based on the difficulty that you're at very well. So then when you do a silver one, I think your minimum key is recommended at like 50 or 35. I can't remember which one it is. But once you get past that barrier, then it starts giving you that next level of gear. And I don't know, the progression that it's done, it could have been added charges, which is how I'm happy it's not. But the progression system is very nice in it. Where even when you go back to the next ones, it's for me, I just kind of like it because it's a competition who can get the most kills. And let's face it, certain classes have way better abilities. Like as a hunter, you can take out 5 with 1 hit. It's pretty nice. But yeah. So Mike, what about your thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima Legends? How did you like it?
Yeah. So I've played it a lot less. I only played it during like the little bit that we recorded. But I mean, kind of a lot of what you said. I think it was a lot of fun. And it was so random because when I at first like playing Ghost of Tsushima, it's like, okay, this is just like a story game. So when they first announced that they were gonna like add in multiplayer, I was like, that's kind of weird. That doesn't sound like it would fit well with a game like this. But so the fact that they did it and then it works really well. I was very pleasantly surprised. Not that I was too worried, because they've shown that, at least with this game, that they have a lot of care for it. But it was just such an oddball decision that totally came out of nowhere to me. But it ended up coming out really, really nicely. The gameplay of it too is really smooth, which I was surprised by. I know, like between the 3 of us in our group, we tend to have internet problems. And comparing it to Mario Maker is a bit unfair. Mario Maker has god-awful internet, the way that the server works in that game. But so like seeing that this game was not only just it plays well, but it also like the internet functionality of it's really great too. Because I noticed there were times where like things got a little bit laggy. At least I could tell like someone's internet was a little slow, but it didn't really affect the gameplay at all. At least the people that weren't having internet problems were completely fine. And so I really like it when games do stuff like this, but also put care into like making sure that connection-wise and server-wise everything's flowing nicely. And so you can just tell it was made with love, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, and one of the things that me and Matt discovered recently, and this is not anything too specific. I mean, if you boot up the Legends mode right away, you'll figure it out. Or you might figure it out. But I'm a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Greg Baldwin, the voice of Uncle Iroh, is actually the narrator for Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode, which is I remember when we were recording, I was like, this voice sounds familiar, but I don't want to get it wrong. But I looked into it, and I was just like, holy crap, it is actually Uncle Iroh. And like, even when he says something that's like, a Mongol fell to a ghost's perfect aim, I was like, he's talking about me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to touch on Ghost of Tsushima Legends mode. It's a multiplayer thing. It gives him a little bit out of the game. It's very fun.
Try it out. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have played the game, even if you get stuck in a random room, and I stuck in some story mode.
People are usually pretty decent.
Yeah, but I mean, I like doing it with Matt because Matt doesn't quit on me, even when we. I remember there's a time when me and Matt were doing a silver challenge, and we were down to like 1 continuum. We didn't even get past chapter 1, and we just said, screw it, let's just see how far we get. We somehow completed the whole thing.
And we beat it.
And we beat the whole thing, and we were just like, oh, well, that was kind of...
Well, it was a small adjustment.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I died... I usually would not... I would usually throw the blame on Matt, but it was 100% on me when we were playing. I think I died like 3 times immediately. So Matt definitely carried that round. But... now we're going to move on to our last topic, and that is what Matt calls the decision. It's not LeBron James choosing his team that he is going to. It is a decision of what happened between Jin and
spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's
spoiler
okay.
alert.
So huge spoiler alert for this one too. If you guys don't want a spoiler for one of the
this is it.
Moments in the game,
this is the end of the video. Stop watching. Yeah.
But for those of you who played the game and want to talk about it, at the very end of the game, Lord Shimura requests an audience with the ghost after the Khan is defeated. So they meet back at the at pretty much where you did your sword training, and you go to the grave of your father, and pretty much it comes down to the decision of Lord Shimura says, "Hey, the Shogun needs the head of the ghost, and it's my punishment to get it to him." And you, as the ghost, are like, "I like my head. I'd like to keep it." So after you win the duel, you have a decision to make. You either are given the decision to spare your uncle, or kill him. And I want to know what you guys picked.
Mike can.
Wait, you want Mike to go first? Is that what you're saying?
I'll go first. I can go first. Yeah. I can go first. Whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So remember, we ignore. Anyways, I decided to let Lord Shimura leave.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Because, yeah.
But really,
decision of the game, you're just like, yeah, sure, I'll let you live.
Expert analysis.
Okay, here's my thinking. You spend all freaking game, you go on the battle against him at Komoda Beach. You think that you get killed, supposedly. You come back as the ghost, and then you learn that, oh shit, he didn't die. The Khan didn't. Like, initially, I was like, okay, like, this is gonna be like a revenge story. Like, Shimura's gonna lose his head, and Jin's gonna find it. He's gonna kill the Khan and be blah blah blah. Straightforward. No, the Khan like keeps him, takes him prisoner. Jin has to fight through one whole act just to get him out. After getting him out, he's like, okay, I have to retake my home castle. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I go into battle with him and retake his home castle in Act 2. And not only that, I retake that castle with minimal casualties, I retook it, and I pretty much got the Khan on the run on his last legs. And what does he do? He's like, oh, you bring dishonor. You cannot do that. And I'm like, dude, I literally saved you guys. And then you want to put me in jail or blame it on Yuna?
Well, they do put him in jail.
Yuna would have been in jail, yeah. And then I was like, no. And then the next thing we know it, I defeat him in duel, and he's like, oh, just end me, Jin. And like, no! I wasted all this time straight saving your ass. And you want me to just cut your head off right now? Like, no. Like, basically, my thing was like a big F you to Lord Shimura. just more of an F you. Be like, okay, I spent all this time and effort just to keep you alive, and now you want me to kill you because of samurai honor. And then I'm like, no, thank you. I'm the ghost. I'm gonna be the ghost and do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was gonna say one of the things that I thought was we didn't mention this before, but I thought it was cool about the Khan is that it was very clear that he wanted to find any means, he wanted to use any means necessary to be able to like maintain his power, and really him wanting to use the ghost was very clear since like once the legend started to grow, he's like, well, this could be a great asset if I was able to get him on my side. So that's why he's keeping Lord Shimura. Well, he wanted to get Lord Shimura on his side, but then he was like, wait a second, the ghost might have more power than Lord Shimura, so I might as well try to get him on my side. But I mean, Mike, do you want to say what you did first, or
sure?
I'm not sure if it's different than what I chose.
Matt's explanation sounded like a 10-year-old boy's experience playing this game of what? But I did all that to save you, and you what? Anyway, I have a soul, so I did the other option. Well, I killed him 100% for sure.
Okay, so
and to me, my decision was the opposite of like Matt's process, right? I was like, as Jin the ghost, I have chosen to walk my path, which is, doing whatever it takes to save people, and if honor has to be on the side, then that's the sacrifice we make. But it's also understanding that Shimura was not like that, understanding that I did not want him to be brought into what I'm doing. It was clear at the time that Shimura was very torn, right, and that it was something that he was never going to be able to get past. Which is, I love my nephew, and I'm there for him, and I'll do whatever for him. But he's the ghost, and he's like essentially, now that the Mongols are pretty much taken care of, like the number one enemy of me. And so it was clear that it was something that was going to bother him. And so when he lost that duel, he basically made it clear, like, hey, by my honor code, I lost this duel. This is the end. Kill me. It didn't seem like a moment where he was joking, right, or was like doing it. Like, oh, just do it because I'm, an emo 14-year-old kid. It felt like, no, this is how I operate. This is how I do things. And so it felt like, Jin's whole thing was, I'm going to walk my path. It felt the respectful thing to do in that moment was to let Shimura do what he wanted, right? Which is live by honor and die by honor. So that was the choice I made. Everything that came before, as far as saving him from the castle and stuff, it's all in the past to me, right? It was in that moment, this is what I felt like needed to be done, which is letting someone go their path the same way that your character walks their path. As hard as that choice may be. So that's what I ended up doing.
No, I respect that choice because it was a tough one for me too. So I want to just take a quick step back for the reason why is because I thought one of the biggest commentaries for me was the fact that, especially during the Act 2, when the Khan was planting all these traps and he's actually willing to fight dirty, Lord Shimura kept saying, no, the honorable way is to charge on, fight your enemy head first, and then pretty much that decision that Jin made was pretty much when he saw that he's going to get these people all killed. So I feel like it was one of those situations where, as weird as it says, it was a right versus right decision where, yeah, it's definitely a gray area, but I can respect both methods of thought. I chose to save him, but my reasoning was a little bit different. So this is just my pure interpretation. There is no like lore that says this, but for me, the way that I interpreted the ghost was he kind of towed the line between honor and anarchy. So what I always thought of the ghost was that he's able to make those really tough choices that other people shouldn't be forced to make. And because of that, he has a lot of followers, but he also has a lot of enemies. So when you're towing that line, it's really not, as we said the word before, honorable. It's not an honorable path to do so because, let's face it, you're choosing life or death constantly throughout your entire journey. And when it comes down and you're looking at it in like a case-by-case basis, you're not really doing an honorable thing. You're just doing, I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of honor, but for me, it's not really a right versus wrong kind of decision. But I never thought of the ghost as really having that honor, having that, being able to follow that moral code, because he's constantly going to be doing what he thinks is what's the best call at the end of the day. Yeah. So if you're not having honor in that final choice, why do you have to kill him for honor's sake? He's just like, it's honorable to kill me, and you used to be all about honor. Who cares? I don't have honor. That's not who I am anymore. That means
I'm the ghost.
Yeah, I'm the ghost, so I can choose what I think is going to be the best path. And honestly, I think it's a tougher decision because it's somebody who pretty much raised you as their own son and was going to adopt you. So I thought to myself, so this guy is pretty much my father figure. And if it's father figure and somebody who you grew up with, I feel like that's a tougher choice. And honestly, even if he wasn't the ghost and he wished for that at the end and maybe he still had a samurai moral code, I probably wouldn't have done it either way, but yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at towards Jin's perspective too. Like, this is literally the man who brought him up, took him in. Like you said, was his father figure. Like, he learned everything from him. He grew up, he knew what he liked. He, enjoyed, having him. He did everything for him. And a part of him, Jin, is also, I think he has that thought too, where you learn a little bit about his past, about how he had a chance to save his father. And I guess this is another redemption chance to save, some, like, his last standing family member that, because he really doesn't have any more family, unless he decides to get married and, have kids. But I don't think that's the ghost priority right now. I think his priority right now is just to avoid whoever's coming after his head that's going to be sent by the Shogun.
Pretty much.
And I mean, and look at it this way. He gets more time to escape because Shimura probably is not going to report back to the Shogun yet, right?
And also, it's feudal Japan. You can't send messages that fast.
They got message pretty fast for those reinforcements, man. But that's like that one dude who he got there pretty fast.
I guess you got a point there. Well, those are all of my topics. Do you guys have anything else you want to mention about the game?
I'm just interested in to see what's Sucker Punch is going to be doing going forward. Well, I don't even know if Sucker Punch is. Well, I'm assuming they're going to be hopefully continuing this. I would not see them. I cannot see them handing this to a larger company or production company.
I mean, Sucker Punch is pretty big already, though.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it would be interesting to see what they do. Do they keep it on Tsushima? Do they go to mainland Japan? That'd be pretty cool. But
although I wasn't sure if that's if it's a sequel is really possible, because I think I think as Mike said in one of our end of the year videos, the Mongols only really invade once. Like, what are they gonna do?
Right.
There's another Mongol army that pops in right afterwards. Like,
I
feel like
mean,
that wouldn't make sense.
There's a lot of stuff that happens in history, and like we mentioned, like technically the Mongols, if you want to be accurate, the Mongols never really invaded Japan because of a giant ass typhoon. But
right.
I mean, so they can create whatever they want. Honestly, they could make conflict with neighboring countries around, Asia.
True.
Just for the heck of it. Who knows, right?
Well, and I think the other thing to me too is I could absolutely care less. I mean, it'd be cool if they made a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, but I could care less if they really do. What I care about is that they see, okay, this was a formula that worked. People like the style. Let's continue making the style. Because prior to this, the only thing that Sucker Punch was like really known for, or at least that like the bulk of their productions is the Infamous series, which is a fantastic game series. Those games are a lot of fun, and they also have a lot of questions on right or wrong to the point where your character can literally turn into like the villain at times. So those games are very well thought out, but they're very niche. I personally, I didn't get too big into those games, but that's also they were an older style. And so maybe seeing that, okay, this Ghost of Tsushima is a formula for success, even if they make it like a modern day game, but kind of holding to that same style of, like more complex combats, missions that aren't just like go here and do this for who knows what reason, kind of just putting meaning into everything that your game has. I don't care if that's Japan, if that's somewhere else in Asia, somewhere in history or present day. I think it's just sticking to that formula. So hopefully, they saw, hey, people liked this, people are into this. Let's do more things like this. That's all I'm hoping for, whether that's Ghost of Tsushima or something completely different,
100%.
Just don't be EA.
Just not EA.
There you go.
Respect for that. So, that is our game breakdown of Ghost of Tsushima. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. If there's anything specific that maybe we didn't point out or certain things that that we liked, that we mentioned that you guys also really liked, comment section down below. You can use it whenever. It's actually kind of nice that there's a webcam. Now when I do the finger pointing, it actually is somewhere.
Makes sense. Now you now have something to visualize it. Like,
exactly.
Oh my god,
because I used to do the comment section
I have
below,
to
and it
comment.
was just not asking
Now I
me,
have
and so
to
I was just
comment.
like, nobody can see this. Why am I doing it? But
It's actually there now.
it's actually a comment section, just like the video title. But yeah.
And there's a like button too.
Oh yeah. The obligatory smash that like button and comment your favorite pizza topping. Honestly, your favorite pizza topping would be awesome, but I actually do love this game. So
Mushrooms.
if you guys want to talk about mushrooms, go ahead, but please talk about Ghost of Tsushima too. Thank you all for joining us, and have a fantastic rest of your day.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.